Hey guys, it's Wednesday's video. Let's take a look at the syllabus and get up to date on where we're supposed to be. So today is the 20th. It says here ethos, pathos, logos, review. We're going to do a little bit of that, but we're going to focus on organization today. Keep in mind your writing response 7 is due by 4 p.m. today on eCampus under coursework and then exploratory writing. So this is basically the mini proposal. I want to make sure you're on track with your research and you're not doing a tired topic. Again, if you are not sure what a tired topic is, look at Monday's video and the assignment sheet. All right, another announcement about the syllabus. Thursday, I did have a movie debate activity planned, but a lot of you need more time with research and research tips. So I'm going to go ahead and just scratch this movie debate. So don't look for any activity to complete on Thursday, okay? All that you'll have to do on Thursday is the free write, work on writing response 8, and watch the video about research, okay? So the one last note, actually 2 more notes. So writing response 8 is just like the peer review that you did before. It's going to be in the same place, and I will talk more about that in Thursday and Friday's video to give you a reminder. And then the last note is you guys all have your midterm grade forms. So some of you have come to me with questions. That's totally fine. I've noticed kind of a pattern already of people who are maybe happy with their midterm grades, and so they're not turning in work. The midterm grades are not promised, so they can go up, they can go down. So just make sure that you are doing your work, you're turning in things on time, you're turning in things at all, and just stay up to date with this work. I know that you're probably getting tired, but keep your momentum going. Okay, so we're almost there with the end of the semester stuff, and hopefully your stakeholder paper is starting off pretty well. So what we're going to do with this video is we're going to look at an outline form. So I've already done up one here, and this is flexible. We're going to go through it step by step, and then we're going to see how this student implemented the outline form in her paper. Okay, so I've already mentioned some of this, but here's a visual to help you with your actual paper writing process. So the introduction should be a scene. I've said it here, showing introduction. This is where the narrative is going to help you. The main argument for this, why I'm requiring you guys to write a scene, is not only to use those skills that you learned in the narrative yet again, but also think about, for an extreme example, think about when people talk about or discuss the Holocaust. So you are maybe in the Holocaust Museum or just learning about it in a history class, and they throw out a statistic at you. How many people were murdered during the Holocaust? Something like that might be too big of a number or too much information to really absorb. So a lot of Holocaust narratives have come in, and writers who have either been children of the Holocaust victims or actual victims themselves, they've come in and they have told their personal story. So to me, as a reader, I am much more invested in that personal story than a giant statistic or a fact that I can't really wrap my head around. So that's why I'm asking you guys to do a showing introduction here, to tell a story, to show a scene, okay? It's not a transcript like your narrative, your papers were not transcripts, but you are becoming more individualized and personalized with your stakeholder paper, introduction and conclusion, and your personal stake section. Those are the 3 showing places: intro, personal stake, and conclusion, okay? This part here, the 2 stakeholders, 2 or 3, will be more telling. All right, doesn't mean it's boring, it just means it's more straightforward. So I have the 5 hook types here again: question, quote, statistic, or fact. Again, you might stray away from this. Anecdote is a story, or a strong statement. What sentence do you want to open up with? A bridge is just the continuation of the story, and then your thesis statement. So this might be 2 small paragraphs, it might be 1 longer paragraph. It really just depends. But your thesis statement should be somewhere close to your introduction, and it should answer your research question. So you're all coming up with topics, and I'm looking at your writing response 7 today, and I'm responding to those to try to guide you toward a productive topic. And whenever you arrive at an answer to your research question, then you'll just put that in the form of a statement, not a question, because you're trying to improve your ethos with the reader. You're saying, I have done my homework, and this is the information that I've found. And we'll talk a little bit more about specific thesis statements, because some of you struggled in the rhetorical analysis, and I even had a template for that. So I might provide another template to help you guys wrap your minds around this project. Okay, so introduction always first. These 3 paragraphs here are changeable. You can put them in whatever order you want. I have just kind of randomly put them in this order. A lot of students find it helpful to talk about I call it my team. It's the people who you are agreeing with, and then the opposition, obviously the people who do not take your same stance, and then your personal stake. And again, this is going to be a story or a scene. So within the My Team section, I've given you the typical paragraph structure. Also, the My Team section, it doesn't have to be 1 paragraph. Please break up your paragraphs. I've said it to multiple students. If you start a new topic, make it into a new paragraph. But for each paragraph, you should have a topic sentence. I've discussed this in other videos, but a topic sentence includes a transition word normally that links the paragraphs together, so I can understand a little bit better what's coming up and how it relates to what we've just discussed. A lot of students, instead of transition words, they use subheadings. So the sample paper we're going to look at in a second has subheadings, and she uses them very well. So transition or subheading, which stakeholder are you talking about? I need to know that in the topic sentence itself. And then what's the argument that this stakeholder presents, okay? So that's the typical thing, the topic and the argument and a transition. Those are the 3 main pieces of topic sentences. This part here, evidence supporting details, this will obviously be your research. So what quotes have you found? What paraphrases can you include? For this paper, I would say include more quotes. Some of you summarized a large block of text and then you just put a citation at the very end of the paragraph. That's okay, but the better researcher and the better writer is going to include quotes, and they're going to embed them within sentences. So you might have 2 sources per paragraph, and that kind of shows me that you are striving to, or you're trying to master the art of quoting. All right, concluding sentence. So this is really just 1 sentence where you get to the point and you say how this argument, what you've just presented, matters to your paper and your overall argument, okay? This should build up and become more important and more present as you continue the paper, but each paragraph should relate back to your thesis statement in some way. Opposition, same kind of structure, just obviously different information. So topic sentence, transition, which stakeholder, their views / argument. So again, the transition, the topic, and the argument. Evidence supporting details, again, I stress that you use quotes. You can use more than 1 source per paragraph. Just avoid overquoting. That means just stringing quotes together, one after one after one. You need to make sure you justify how you've chosen your quote and why you're including it. And then your concluding sentence, the same thing. Personal stake. So I'm saying 1 to 2 paragraphs maximum for this because we don't want it to become a new narrative paper. And the same thing, topic sentence, transition. What is your argument and your view? What are you going to say in this paragraph? The scene from your life. You showing language, not telling language, just like you did for your narrative paper. Concluding sentence. How does it matter? All right, and then the conclusion, this is where you can tie all the arguments together and you really emphasize and drive home the point that you're presenting. You have the most valid argument, you're persuading the audience to adopt your view and the views of, quote, my team, and you might include something like a prediction, solution, or a consequence. A lot of these papers will be problem and solution papers. So the problem might exist here. You might even start with the opposition. Like I said, these three middle sections are, they can change position or change order. So if you obviously present a problem up here, then you might say, my team presented this view, but I'm going to elaborate on that view and present an even better solution. And here you can emphasize what that solution is. Okay, so there are multiple ways to do this. You do not have to follow this structure perfectly, but this is the structure of a stakeholder paper with some parts that are malleable. So let's take a look at this student's paper. She actually wrote about something really important to her life because she grew up with horses and the horse business. So horse slaughter, the necessary evil. So right off the bat, she has a really strong title. I know the subject, and then I know even her view on the subject, or like what something interesting. Because to me, I would say necessary evil. I would say, oh no, probably that's not necessary. So I'd want to read this paper to understand the title, which is a sign of a really great title. All right, so her scene introduction, she asked the reader to imagine growing up with a farm right across the street, and your best friend is a horse, quote unquote. And this is basically her entire life with her horse, but she's engaging the reader by asking them to imagine that your life, that your horse is basically, you sold your horse, and then the horse you found out was later up for, it needed to be slaughtered. So it's pretty, there's a lot of pathos here, essentially, if we remember emotional appeal from the audience. So already I'm thinking, why is this an issue? Why does this exist? And I don't know anything about horse slaughtering, so she's going to break it down for me. Okay, so she used subheadings, like I said, and they're very successful because they're specific enough that I can gauge what the different topics of horse slaughtering, but they're also general enough that this information from sometimes one paragraph, sometimes multiple paragraphs can fit into the same subheading. So increase in jobs. Notice that she didn't just have my team, opposition, personal stake. So I should not be creating your subheadings for you. You guys should be creative thinkers and include them, like she did here. So she started out with basically why horse slaughtering. She gave me a definition here, and then why horse slaughtering is a thing that happens, essentially. The, quote, necessary part of the necessary evil. She has some summarization here, or paraphrasing. She has sources. She's doing them correctly, MLA style, with the author's last name, page number, followed by the period out here. She should introduce them a little bit more, because I don't know who Murphy and Huang are. So that's one thing. Remember, the quoting, integrating 3 steps to integrating sources effectively video will help you with. All right. So now she's talking about horse meat and the consumption of horse meat. She's talking about overpopulation. Here's a really great quote that she included. So we have who, we have what the president of Missouri Equine Council. So that's probably pretty important. And then we have the actual quote here with the correct citation. All right. So now she changes, this is all the opposition, and now she changes her tune. So the immortality of horse slaughter. So now she's in overbreeding, cruel, inhumane treatment. It's probably the most obvious one. Methods of slaughter. And if we go all the way down, she included a little bit of her personal stake section toward the end. So she did like opposition, my team, and then my personal stake. The dialogue is basically the conclusion, and she included a couple more sources in here, and she then asks the reader kind of to make up the reader's own mind. You should really make a judgment call on it and say, this is the definitive answer that I'm offering. This is my opinion, and I backed it up with personal experience and with all of the research that I have. Okay, guys, so keep me updated on your topics, and start writing your papers. A small draft is due on Friday in the peer review, so just let me know if you have questions.